Hi, this is an introductory video for EDAD 6800 School Leadership at the University of New Orleans for summer 2013. My name is Brian Beabout. I'm the course instructor, and yesterday we had our introductory meeting on campus, and I wasn't able to get my recorder working, so in lieu of posting a recording of the meeting, I'm going to post this brief orientation video that'll take you through some of the expectations for the course and take you through the syllabus and just give you some pointers to help everybody get situated as we get going. The course is pretty relentless in its pace once we start. Particularly, this is a summer course and we only have 8 weeks as opposed to the normal 14 weeks of regular semester. And so you're going to want to pay close attention to the topics we cover here in this video and get right to work, as our first assignments will be due shortly after the beginning of the semester. This intro course in our master's program, we also have some doc students, some alt-cert students, is really an overview of school leadership, educational change, and focused on the process of shifting your perception of schools and how they function from that of a teacher perspective to that of a leader perspective. Leaders comes in all shapes and sizes. Many of the best leaders I know are full-time classroom teaching positions, but they still meet my definition of a leader, which is to influence the adults around them. The certification program that this course is a piece of leads to school leadership principal certification, and so some people are obviously on that track as well. And additionally, we're seeing an increasing number of middle management roles for teachers, which has been a development over the last 25 years, partially due to teacher unions, partially due to recognition that teachers need various levels of support and teachers have varying career paths that they want to take. So there are a number of positions that people have in their heads as they come into this course, and we try to be sensitive to that in the way we've developed things. The objective here is to get you to understand organizations, get you to understand change, and to get you to understand how leadership impacts how we view and act in organizations when we lead for change. I have a copy of the syllabus here in front of me. I'm going to talk us through page by page through there, covering some highlights. So if you're watching this, you can look in the Topic 1 folder, and the course syllabus is located there, and you can follow along with that or print it out if that's easier. Like I said, this is primarily an online course. We'll be meeting on using UNO's Moodle site, so look for the link that's located in the syllabus there to log in with your regular UNO user ID and password, and you can click into EDAD 6800, which should be available to you at this point. Most of our work will be in the threaded discussion boards in each topic. There will be some PDF readings, there will be some textbooks readings each week, there will be some supplementary materials I'll put in some of the folders, but the majority of your time will be spent in the discussion boards. And each of our 7 units has a discussion component that comprises about half the course grade. The other half comes from written assignments, which are 3. There's your log of your field experiences there, which we'll talk more about later. There is your midterm paper based on Michael Fullen's book and the Daniel Pinkwater children's book, and your final paper, which is an analysis of a change experience using some of the concepts from Boltman and Deal's Reframing Organizations book. So textbooks is a reasonable place to start. We're going to go pretty much in the order that they're listed in the syllabus. The first textbook you'll need is How Teachers Become Leaders by Ann Lieberman and Linda Friedrich, which is a look at their work with the National Writing Project and how teachers begin to expand their sphere of influence beyond their classroom into the entire school. So that's the first book. It's really a look at how to adapt your mindset and how teachers evolved to concern themselves with issues that were more than just their classroom, more than just the teachers on their roster. There's a number of ways the teachers that they profile in this book have done that, and hopefully you can find yourself in one of those stories and use that as sort of as a mental guide as you start developing your leadership abilities. We'll spend the first 2 weeks looking at that text. The second book we'll read is Michael Fullan's Leading in a Culture of Change, very widely read leadership textbook, and we'll arrive at the conclusion, I hope pretty shortly, that it's difficult to talk about leadership very long without talking about change, because to lead people towards what is the question people should ask when they're beginning their studies of leadership, and generally the answer to that is some sort of change. So that book looks at a particular model of change that has 5 major components. Each gets a chapter in the text, and we'll take you through there over a 3-week span in the first half of the course. Your midterm will be based on an analysis of Daniel Pinkwater's children's book, The Big Orange Splot, using the concepts from Fullan, and you'll sort of be merging those two into a coherent argument. That'll be due, I think, in Unit 5. And so we'll talk more about the specifics for that midterm. I don't have the Pinkwater book in front of me. It's on my kid's bookshelf, and it's kind of a mess, and I couldn't find it this morning. But it's available in the bookstore and widely available online. It's from the 70s, so it's been around a while. The final book of our course is Bowman and Deal's Reframing Organizations. It's a big fat one, used in MPA programs, MBA programs, ed leadership programs. It is, while both work in colleges of education, it's not a education specific book. It is a organizations book, hence the title. We'll all be reading the first 2 chapters that orient us to their idea of the 4 frames of organizations: the structural, the human resource, the symbolic, and the political, as sort of 4 lenses with which to view the organizations we look in. For your final paper, you'll be selecting 2 of those frames and a case of change in your workplace, and using 2 of those frames to lay over top of that case of change to see what becomes more obvious to you, or what is hidden, or what is made more clear by using those frames to look at this case of change that you're going to write up. You can see more about the final paper on the second to last page of the syllabus. It's in there. So that's the text requirements for the course. There are also a number of PDF readings, particularly as we go through the Fullan book. Most of those units have a article attached, so you'll be reading a chapter or 2 out of Fullan plus an article. And your online posts for each week need to make sure they make reference to all the assigned readings. That's sort of the entry level of my assessment there. I'm making sure you've done all the reading, so make sure you're doing some analysis of each reading, even if you tend to provide more emphasis on one or the other. Moving forward in the syllabus, there's some recommended text on there which we won't be assigning. They're recommended, but you don't need to get them for any particular assignment, so they're not in the bookstore. Field experiences and live text is a good thing. It's on the bottom of page 1, bottom of page 2, top of page 3. This course requires 15 hours of field experiences in leadership-focused activities. 5 of those will be done by the whole course at the same time. It will be part of your written assignment for a given week, and we'll get to those in a second. That leaves another 10 hours of self-selected field experiences that are leadership-focused. We have a number of suggestions on the very back page of the syllabus, which are just that, suggestions. You don't have to do these things, but these are the types of things that satisfy an activity. At the end of the semester, I believe 11% of your course grade is based on your submission of a portfolio of those field experiences, which is not a lot of narrative. It's really just a documenting what you've done and where you did it, etc. So it's not a big narrative portion for the field experience portfolios. Those of you who are principal certification students, that's MED or Alt-Cert, you'll need to submit that via live text, which is our required e-portfolio system. And if you don't have a subscription for that yet, the directions are posted down at the very bottom after Unit 7 in our Moodle. There's one called End of Course Documents or something like that that has live text directions for loading the templates. Those of you who are not in certification programs, if you're a PhD student, if you're just taking this as for the teacher leader endorsement or just an interesting class, you'll just submit live text. You'll submit your field experience hours via a spreadsheet that's located in that same folder all the way at the bottom of the Moodle page. Let's talk about the 5 field experiences that are mandated that everybody's going to do together. These start on page 5 of the syllabus. And we don't have any for the first 2 weeks, but you need to read them carefully as soon as the course begins, so that you can make plans for some of these that you can't necessarily do them exactly when you want to. For example, the professional development experience, there has to be a professional development activity going on for you to do it. So field experience 1 is a model of change. It's an interview with a person in your school responsible for leading a change effort, and you're going to deconstruct it. I'll give you some suggested questions there. Number 2 is examining relationships. You just need a public space in a school to take some notes on the types of interactions the adults are having there. Number 3 is professional learning, which is what I mentioned earlier. You'll be looking at a professional learning opportunity for educators as if you are assessing a classroom lesson. So you'll be determining what the objective was, what the instructional methods were, and critiquing them. Were they effective? Was there assessment? How do we know that the adults in the room learned what the objective was, etc. I think that's an important experience as you begin shifting from a classroom-focused mindset into a leader-focused mindset. Field experience 4 is a culture walk, which requires you to walk through a physical space in your building, looking, after having read some of the symbolic frame discussion out of Bowman and Deal, looking for symbols, myths, heroes, heroines, and other symbolic pieces that make up the culture of the school. It's actually easier to do this one in an empty building, so you're not distracted and you can sort of look quietly. One of the important things about the symbolic frame is a given artifact, a given symbol means one thing to somebody, and then something very different to somebody else, depending on their perspective, role in the organization, attitude towards the organization, etc. So you'll want to be aware of how you might be viewing something, but also how someone else might be viewing it as you conduct that field experience. The last one is diverse perspectives field experience, which is going to be to talk to 3 different people about a single change effort and look for similarities and differences in how they talk about a specific change effort, which I think will go a long way towards sensitizing you to the nuances that people bring to their work in change in schools. So those 5 will all be discussed in the weekly assignments when they're due, as part of your post in Moodle. The other 10, I won't actually see any evidence that they're being done until you turn in your either live text or spreadsheet portfolio, depending on whether you're a certification student or not, the very last week. But the other 5 that we're all doing together, you'll submit a write-up of that in your weekly report, which I call a critical response. On page 6, you see some discussion of elective and grading of field experiences, which takes us to the section on online discussions. The bulk of the time in this course, and about 50% of the course weight, is on your performance in online discussions. We have 7 units. Each one is worth 7% of your grade, and that's composed of your original response to the readings and or field experiences of a given week, and then your dialogue with classmates based on those posts. So the schedule will generally work like this, except for week 1, which is a short bit of an anomaly. In most weeks on Friday, I'll send out an email reminding you that the next unit is open, and I'll have the discussion prompt and the readings referenced. Generally over that weekend, you're doing the readings that are assigned for that week, making plans to do whatever field experience you need to do if there is one. That following Wednesday by midnight, your 500-word response to the readings and or summary of the field experience, if you had one that week, are all due on Moodle. They should be about 2 double-spaced pages. That's why I give the 500 word number. The sort of practical advice for doing these posts is to type them in Microsoft Word and make sure they're saved and you have them and they're not going to get erased suddenly, rather than typing them in Moodle, where if your web browser crashes or it logs you out, you've lost your work, and that can be really frustrating. So type them in Word and then copy and paste them into the dialog window. Don't attach Word files to the your posts, because then we're constantly opening files and opening new windows, and it sort of makes the reading just a little bit more clunky and less smooth. And we'll be doing plenty of reading this semester, so there's no need to make it any harder than it is. So you'll post those in there using copy and paste. From Wednesday midnight, when everybody's discussions are posted, through that following Sunday evening is when the dialogue portion will happen. At a minimum, and I repeat, at a minimum, each student is required to respond to 3 posts authored by their classmates substantively, and I call that about 125 words, half a double-spaced page. You can expound upon ideas you saw, you can disagree. I give pretty wide range into what the content of a valid response to a classmate is, but it should not be, I agree and you're right. Not only would that be not long enough, but it doesn't provoke any sort of deeper understanding. The goal of the dialogue, as it would be if we were in class, is to further the understanding of the original speaker and the responder as they interchange. Beyond your 325 word responses, you may post as many shorter responses as you want. So once I post those first 3 and I get into a back and forth with someone on an issue and I'm just posting 1 sentence little responses, that's absolutely fine. If I see a bunch of those from you, I'm not going to think you're shirking your requirements, etc. I'll just make sure I look for the 3 substantive ones first, and then I encourage folks to do many more than that, but 3 is a minimum. Many of you will do 10 and 20 posts many weeks. That's certainly not normal. So the grades for those will be 4 percentage points for each original post that's due on Wednesdays, and then 3 points, excuse me, I flip-flopped it. It's going to be 3 points for your original post, 4 points for the online discussion that happens in the second half of the week. There's a couple weeks where we don't have dialogue, one when the midterm is due, and this first week where we have a shortened week, and so in those weeks the 7 points will be given all towards your original post. The midterm paper is discussed at the bottom of page 7. I'll discuss that when we get a little bit closer. The reframing paper, your final paper, is discussed pretty significantly. There's a full page on that, second to last page of your syllabus. On the bottom of page 7, top of page 12, is the grade breakdown and the grading scale used in the course. Page 9 is a course calendar. Looks like this, probably the most useful page that you'll come across in here. It lays out in the first column the dates for everything, and so it's organized by unit 1, 2, 3 through all the way through 7. You'll see a beginning date, a posts date, and a critiques date for each week. So that's when I will send the beginning date is when I'll send out the reminder that the unit is open, and here are the readings and here's the discussion prompt. Posts are the Wednesdays when your individual responses are due. Critiques are when the dialogue ends. Those are Sunday evenings. There's a title for the unit under the topic column, and then the readings that are due. Most readings will have a PDF article from Moodle plus textbook chapters, so you need to make sure you're accessing both. And then the assignment due is on the right hand side. Most weeks it's a discussion plus a field experience. FE is my shorthand for that. So for weeks when you have a field experience, if I have 500 words in my post and I have 2 readings and a field experience, then break that 2 double-spaced pages into 3 sections, and make sure you just summarize what you did in your field experiences and your reflection on that as part of your post of the week. It's not a separate post or anything. You pull those all together. The field experiences you're doing are explicitly connected to the readings you're doing that week, and so they should jive together if things work out right. You'll see there's a big black stripe in the middle with your big orange splot midterm paper due Sunday, July 7th. That's a midterm. You notice there's no critique the week before that, so you're just putting your posts up the Wednesday, and then you have the rest of that weekend to do your midterm, which is really an exam on the full and textbook. The last 2 weeks towards the end, we're looking through the Bowman and Deal text. Once we're getting an orientation to the first 2 chapters and reading one of their articles. Unit 7 is a bit interesting because you're going to post an outline of your final paper, which is going to summarize your story of change and select 2 of the 4 frames from Bowman and Deal that you're choosing to use in your analysis. And your critique and your dialogue points that week will be earned by responding to 3 of your classmates' outlines based on your knowledge of Bowman and Deal at that point. And there's going to be there's going to be a dialogue 7B because you do have a field experience, the culture walk due that week. And so that one, you're just going to have to post your a summary of your, about a page summary of your culture walk field experience. You won't need to do discussion that week. Down at the bottom, we'll wrap up by submitting your field experience documentation, either in live text or in Excel, depending on what type of student you are, and your final paper by Sunday, July 26th. That'll be submitted by email. I'll have a couple days to turn grades around, and we will be out of here. 8 weeks goes pretty fast. My general tips for excuse me, doing well in the course are, during the discussion phase, Wednesday through Sunday each week, try and carve out 20 or 30 minutes a day to be on the discussion board. I expect that you're reading all of the posts that go up there from all of your classmates, as you would be listening to all of the discussion that happens in a regular on-campus class. And that requires some reading. If you log in for the first time on Sunday afternoon to do your responses to classmates, you're going to see 50, 60 posts up there, and that can be a little bit daunting. And you frankly get tired out and are unable to respond well. People should be responding to questions or prompts made against their posts. So if I posted my item on Wednesday night and I log in on Friday and I see there's 2 responses there and a couple of them are asking questions, I would like to see you engaging those folks who took the time to ask the question of you. I don't have points necessarily tied to that aspect, but if a couple weeks go by and I see people posting questions in response to your post and you never respond to it, you'll hear from me. There's a grade book feature in Moodle, and I'll be using that to keep course grades. So generally on Mondays I'll go through and grade the original post and the dialogues from that week, and so you'll get 2 grades most Mondays if my summer schedule works out correctly, and so you'll be able to keep track of how you're doing grade-wise in the course. Particularly the first week, if there's something off on your style or the way you've composed your online post, you'll hear from me. If you don't hear anything that first week, that means you're doing well. So I spend a little bit more time on that first week making sure everybody's on the right path with what I expect for the posts than I will once you get up to speed. Yeah, so I think check the board as frequently as your schedule allows. If you have trouble getting field experience sites, some of these require a school to be offering professional development or ability to be open so you can do your culture walk. If you have trouble with that, email the class, post something in the course-related questions discussion. I think that's number 1B or C. And certainly there are people in the class who are able to get into a school and allow you into a building or sit in a staff development session if that's what you need to conduct your experience. Alternatively, email me and I can see what I can do for you to find a field placement for you to do your work. You'll want to make sure you get those set up well in advance so you're not stuck in a bind the night before they're due. That's about it for our overview video. If you have any questions, please email me. I'll be on and off campus this summer, so I won't always be sitting in the office here, but you can always get me on email. And if you want to set up a on-campus appointment, I'm certainly happy to do that. I will be in New Orleans for most of the semester, except for maybe 2 weeks. So I'm happy to do that. Just email me and we can set up a time. Okay, I hope this was informative, and I look towards to seeing you all online.